Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, I'm joined by Vincent LaRussa, and we're going to discuss all about the different versions of Strutter that Kiss has released over the years. What do we like and dislike about each version? Which ones are our favorites, and which ones we don't like? I think you guys are going to really enjoy this episode, so let's jump in and let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm excited to have back with me the chemist, Mr. Vincent LaRussa. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I thought you were going to say you're excited to have your headphones back on your head that you can't find.
Shut up, jerk. Oh man, you see that's what happens when you straighten things up around the house. You end up losing things. But so I feel a little naked. You can see the whole bald spot today and everything, but we're gonna make do.
And you said, I wonder if anybody will notice, and obviously I just blew that up for you.
Of course,
you know,
of course, we'll have to say it right away. So that this way, everybody's like, "Ooh, let's check that out." Oh, look, that's what his wig looks like with no headphones on. It's all right, all good, clean fun. I'm sure I'll find them as I look around still in my room. I'm like, God damn, where did I put them? But they'll be found.
They'll show up.
They'll show up. Hopefully, it doesn't take me as long to find those as it did to do this episode that we're about to discuss today.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we've been talking about doing something like this for many of the month, I think, where I said that I wanted to kind of talk about different songs, Kiss or otherwise, but of course we're going to start with Kiss, and talk about what our favorite version is of the song. So today we're going to start, even before we start talking about all the different versions, we're going to start with the first song on the first side of the first album. So one of my all-time favorite Kiss songs, Strutter. I think it's one of yours as well, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, if I remember right, when we went on the cruise together a few years back and they did Strutter, I think that was, if I remember right, the highlight of the performance for you.
Absolutely. And it sounded great that night. And I, was totally surprised because I wasn't expecting to hear it.
Yeah.
And especially in that room and in a more intimate crowd, you want to say. It was like 1,000 or under.
Yep.
Sound is awesome. You had said that. Wait until you hear the sound and how the audience participates. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's one of the songs that I really wish that those are just some new sound effects I have for the show. Somebody
Would you have a little wizard in the corner right now with like a little book of matches, and he's like kind of strike up some new sound effects?
It's you said that there was an awesome version, you really liked it, so I figured I'd give you some sound effects.
Yeah, that was cool.
That we agree with you.
Yeah, good timing.
You like that, right? So no, for me, it's actually one of the, I'll call it, most abused songs in the catalog, and by that I mean this should be something that's in the set list to me every single year. And the fact that they dropped it after 76 and they brought it back in 80 for a little bit, then they dropped it. And if you remember, I know you were excited on the cruise, but we were equally excited when we saw them at the Ritz in 88 and they did Strutter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know if abused is the right word. Maybe misused. No,
misused,
or not
yeah.
used. Yeah. Something to that effect.
Okay,
but,
see, I don't have the headphones on sapping, putting energy into my brain. So
yeah, actually that is your brain.
That is my brain. Exactly. It's like the guy on Star Wars.
Yeah.
So that's me. Yeah. That's my brain usually.
Yeah.
All the stats are kept and everything. So that's it. Without the headphones, I'm going to be all out of whack.
Yeah, those who are watching this, give them a break for this episode.
That's right. That's right. But, what we wanted to do is talk about the various different released versions of Strutter. There's one that I'm going to throw out there for us to discuss that I guess is not 100% officially released, but it was officially recorded, and we'll talk about that. Of course, people are always going to say, well, I love the version they did in England in 1988 on this bootleg. If we started doing that, we might talk about, 800 different versions of Strutter.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we're not going to do that. Although I will say, at the start of the acoustic shows they were doing in 95, they used to open with Strutter in Australia. And it sounded great. And if I was listing songs that I wish was on MTV Unplugged, I think my two would be Shandy and Strutter. I wish those were both there. So, but it's not. And again, misused.
Yeah.
But let's jump in. Let's talk about the different versions. What I want to do, we'll go chronological, but I'm going to go out of order to start with.
So I'm not, we've never done this before. So nope. as per usual, you MC this and I'll just follow your lead.
That's right. I'm going to be MC Hammer.
Oh, Christ. Thank God you didn't stand up for that one.
I don't have the big baggy pants. Otherwise I would. Those who are listening on the podcast, like, what the hell are these guys talking about right now?
Or those other guys are usually like, will you get to the point already?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But like I said, it's the first song, first side, first album. Let's talk about that version for a moment, right? So I'm just going to start off with a few comments. First, I know we did an episode comparing the first Kiss album to Hotter Than Hell. If you haven't listened to that, that was about a year ago. Go check it out. I'll put the link at the bottom of this in YouTube, right? But if you remember, one of the things I said about the debut album is I don't love the tempos of some of the songs, especially stuff like Cold Gin is just, it's so slow. It could be a ballad. I feel like, which is why I say
exaggeration, but okay.
This is why I say boring.
Yeah.
But I think Strutter was one of the songs they kind of got right, in my opinion, regarding the tempos on the album. But what do you think of the recording on the debut?
Well, first of all, let me just state that, and I think I may have said it even when we reviewed the first album, that I've never had an issue with the sound of that record.
Thank you to one of my guests that sent this to me. You will remain nameless, but you know who you are.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we can't say who it is. We don't have to give his full name. We could say that he's super and
he's super and he knows who he
super.
is. And
yes.
Thank you very much.
I am very. It is your show, but I am jealous. I don't have one of those mugs.
Perhaps I'll send you one autographed.
Yeah, it's got that nice white area there that you could sign there. You know what? This could be a piece of merchandise that you could start, giving away.
It could be. It could be. So anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't even know what I was saying, but I think I was saying that I was
talking about the tempos on the first album.
Well, just in general, the first album, I never had any issue with the sound quality or the recordings. I know what you're saying about, maybe Firehouse or Cold Gin, and it sounds a bit slow, especially when you're comparing them to the Kiss Alive version. But I still think that, as far as the recorded versions, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, because I'll tell you with each version what I don't like or what I do like, but I still think this is the quintessential version of the song, not live recording, because ultimately, again, jumping ahead, I think the live version is the best version from the first Alive album. When I went back.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you again next time.
All right, take care. But you asked, so
yeah. You know what? One of the things,
and I'll tell you why. I like the Alive version. But good, what are you gonna say?
Well, one of the things I like about the debut album version, the drum intro at the beginning. To me, it goes twice, right? So the first LP, does it go twice or does it only go once?
Once.
That's what I thought, right? So I'm jumping the gun a little bit with the live version, right? But that's, I think, maybe
we're all out of order here. Huh? Good thing we did our research and our homework. Right. We're all out of order.
That's my one knock about it, is I do love that double drum intro. And in my mind, that's the quintessential beginning of the song. But there's so much about this to me that they did get right on the first album. And I know so many people say Kern Wise should not be produced. And I thought they really hit a home run on this one. I think the sound, the tempo, everything, I love the version on the debut album.
Yeah, and I think what we should do now is, because we're talking about the debut album, let's go back one. Let's go to the demo version.
That's exactly why I said I was going out of sequence. That's exactly what I wanted to do, my friend.
Because it just, if people have heard it, it's longer. It's almost 5 minutes long. Yep. After the first chorus, it goes back to like the intro again. And I feel like the guitar solo really wasn't refined yet, Ace's guitar solo. I mean, of course, it's a demo version, so the sound quality is not going to be as pristine as the other things, because they probably, when they did that box set, They probably got the best tape that they could find of it. It just whoever made the decisions to cut the song made a great decision because it just seems to go on for too long. And I think the first version or the album version, it's like every part is like right where it's the lengths are totally correct. The verse length, the choruses. The guitar solo is awesome. Classic Ace solo.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think, having that as the first, true release, the Alive version, you can only make it a little bit better, a little bit sweeter. In that time period, which was really only a year later. I mean, if you think about it, which is crazy because they already had 3 albums out.
I know, right?
Right? Those days were great. When artists would put out like 2 albums in a year. But yeah, so I think that what I really like about it, and to your point before, is that if you listen to the intro to Strutter on the Alive version, the sequence that Peter plays, he kind of changes it on the second. He goes almost to a higher tom, and then he starts for the second round. He goes to a lower, So just the sounds of the pitches, and they got that little flange effect that Eddie Kramer put on. It just sounds awesome, know.
Right.
And whether it's re-recorded or not, the vocals on it and the guitar solo, everything is just like perfect on that Alive version. And it certainly has that energy that extra energy, that the first version doesn't have. Or not, I shouldn't say doesn't have. That's not. To me, it just makes it that much better, that more exciting, as for the listener.
So I'm going to go back for a moment there to the demo version, right? So it's funny, you said you don't like those little guitar parts, like after the first chorus, where it kind of almost like goes back to the beginning, is playing those basic chords. I actually like that, and they do the same thing coming out of the solo. I think, if I remember right, as well.
Yeah.
And I love Ace's, especially his outro solo on the demo. I absolutely love it. It's funny, I listened to that demo version, and I love the rawness of it, and you could so feel how raw that is, right? Yet there's still something about, like you said, the debut album version. That's the quintessential studio version in my mind. But I go back and forth. I really like. It sounds like I love that demo more than you do, probably.
Yeah, I just feel like it's almost like a run-on sentence, that demo version. And the other thing that's interesting about the demo version, I mean, at least to my ears, it sounds like the whole song Peter Criss is playing it on a ride cymbal. If you really listen to it, he's playing the ride in the verses, and the choruses or whatever, which is very unusual because no other time did he did that. Is like, did they not have a pair of hi-hats on the drum set? I mean, it's weird. Like, I actually was listening. I'm like, yeah, it's just like you hear this bell ringing ride throughout the whole version.
Okay.
Maybe I was hearing it wrong, but people comment below if you want to correct me, feel free.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure it's a ride cymbal, which is an interesting choice.
Yeah.
So
now that I didn't pick up, and like I said before, I think it's just that whole outro solo that they cut from the final version that's on the album. But Ace does like a second solo on the demo version, which I absolutely love. I love the solo he does. So yeah, there's something about the rawness of that over the years I've kind of gone back and forth. If we did this 5 years ago, I probably would have said I prefer the demo version over the album version. That's how much I like the demo. But today I sit here and I'm like, I think I like the album version better.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's got some charm and some spots, but I just feel like it just goes on. And it's always interesting hearing it, thinking in that time and place that they didn't have a contract yet.
Right.
They were trying to get signed and whatnot. And as they explained, if you watch the biography, that they were getting comp time in the studio to actually record that stuff. And I mean, so lucky to get Eddie Kramer. I mean, he's just working with a couple people like, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, whoever, you know what I mean? Like,
right. And this unknown band Kiss that doesn't even have a record contract.
Right. So,
it's amazing. Something like that would probably never happen today.
Oh, yeah. But I think probably Eddie saw something in those two guys or the material that, and obviously he was right.
Yeah. It's fascinating, just kind of diverting for a moment when I think about that demo. And I did listen back to the full demo the other day when we talked about doing this, because I was like, I haven't listened to it in a while. There's 5 songs on it. 3 are sung by Gene, only 1 by Paul, and 1 by Peter. And I just was thinking about that because to me, in my mind, Paul Stanley is the front man, certainly the co-lead singer, if not the lead singer of Kiss. Yet on the original demo that they were shopping to get signed, he only sang Strutter, and that's it, nothing else.
Well, I was going to bring this up, and maybe this is for another episode or whatever, but if you think, it's an easy question to answer. again, we're going to use that word quintessential. What is the quintessential Kiss song of all the songs in the catalog? You have to pick one.
I go back and forth between Deuce and Black Diamond.
All right, no, no, all right. Let me rephrase the question. What's the
Great.
most popular Kiss song,
Rock and Roll All Night,
and who sang it?
Gene Simmons.
Right. So, I wonder how that came to be that they chose Gene. Like, you're right. Paul Stanley was the lead singer. Unless they didn't think that this was going to be some big, monster song for them.
Right.
We've heard that Paul wrote the chorus, right? And Gene had the. But I wonder at that, if you get Paul on the show next time, that's the question. I don't know if anybody's. I mean, sure, somebody's asked the question, but I don't ever remember reading it.
Right.
Do you remember ever hearing why Gene sang that?
Why they chose Gene over Paul singing it? Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Meanwhile, you listen to that song now, you can't imagine anybody else singing it, right?
No,
Which is,
no, I can't. No.
So I just always thought that was a cool thing, and something I thought of recently, and based on something you just said, that's why I just wanted to.
No, that's an interesting one. We'll have to table that one maybe for another topic or for another episode one day.
Yeah.
You mentioned the live version, right? So
Yeah.
you kind of mix in a conversation about the original, the demo, and the live all at once. One of the things I'm surprised you as a drummer didn't mention this. One of the things I love about the live version is Peter's drumming is solid on it, right? And who knows, studio, not, who knows. But I love in that last verse when she lets you walk the street beside her and they're like, dan, 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 and he like highlights that. I love that part.
Yeah. Which is something then they wound up doing for me pretty much ever, right? Since that point, they would always
in terms
do those
of live, yes. And when we get to talking about Strutter 78, I'll bring up how they didn't do it on that, which surprised me. But that to me is just one of the things I love about the live version. Besides that double intro that I said is, they only did the one rounds on the debut version. But I love the double intro on that and the accents, I'll call it the emphasis during that last verse. It just, and Ace has got a great solo. Again, you mentioned the solo, but he really nails it on a live. That version. So, I said I liked the original version slightly better than the demo today in 2021. I go back and forth. First album alive. It's a toss up to me.
Yeah, the interesting thing too, and I always try to find something technical to bring up, is if you listen and always love the way it went from Deuce to Strutter on Alive. Yes. But after Deuce, you actually hear a four count, a 4 count on the hi-hat. You hear he plays the tempo almost like this, and then the tempo that he comes in is totally different. So,
really?
Only Peter had to cue himself in, but it's almost like if he went say that's the tempo, and I'm not gonna say and then it would be like dunk and dunk and dunk, but it goes. So it's just kind of interesting. I don't know what Peter was thinking or whatever, but when I listened back to that, I was like, that's interesting. I never really caught that before.
And on the live version, that's one of the things I loved Peter's feel, the way he played drums in the early mid 70s, right? And he,
awesome.
We spoke about that before on some of these other episodes, right? Nobody had a feel like him. I think even Gene said something like that on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions, where he's like, nobody played with that swing and that swagger like Peter did. And I agree with Gene 100%. That whole swagger that he had, and just there's a certain feel in this song that can never be duplicated to me by any other drummer, Peter included when we get to the Alive 4 version. But I love that feel he has on that original live version.
Yeah, I agree.
So
you're never going to get an argument from me when it comes to that. So.
I knew I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I think, with, like I said, with those three, I almost can't go wrong with any one of those three versions, right? And my opinion changes day to day. But let's jump then a few years later. Double Platinum, as I like to call it, comes out, right?
Yes.
And the band decides, actually, I think it was Neil Bogart pushed them to re-record a song for the album. And they chose Strutter to re-record, titled Strutter 78. Very creative, right? So, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on that re-record?
Well, here's the interesting thing I find about that version. They were obviously trying to go for a disco vibe. They were in the height of disco, 78. However, the tempo of the disco, or the 78 version, I call it the disco version, is actually a little slower than the original.
Really? Interesting.
So if you think of anything, you would think it would be a little bit more up-tempo. Not to say The original version's about 131 beats per minute for those who are counting and wanting to know the technical details.
Hmm.
Whereas the Strutter 78 is about 128, 129. So it's a 2 beat per minute difference, which
Interesting.
you think that's not that big of a difference, but over time, when you listen to a tune, it actually does make a difference. So
Right.
they actually slowed it down a little bit. They were going for that 4 on the floor with the kick drum. They're bringing in a shaker.
Hmm.
They're bringing in this whole thing to give it more of that danceable feel. Me personally, not a huge fan of this version. I thought it was cool when I was younger because like, oh, this is a different version, and I just think it didn't really age well. Perhaps when we were listening back then, because and I love old disco. It's not that like, oh, I loved it then, I hate it
I think
now.
you like disco more than me.
That is true.
Hmm.
I just don't feel like it's aged very well. I just there's kind of some cool elements in there.
Hmm.
Like I think in the choruses when everybody thinks she's looking good, you hear these like
Right.
noises. Those are pretty cool. There's like kind of cool things in there production wise. I think it sounds great. I mean, I think Sean Delaney was heavily involved in those remixes and re-records. So I think again, thinking about what they were trying to do at the time, I think they accomplished it. So it's just not one of my favorite versions.
And it's funny because I think, most of the band members that I've heard talk about it say that I think Stanley says, why bother? Why did we do
Yeah,
that? But I
yeah.
actually kind of really like it. And maybe it's because it just brings me back to being 8, 9 years old, sitting in my
Hmm.
rug in my room and looking at Double Platinum. And it's the first song on that album. But there's something about, I love the whole outro part where Paul's like ad-libbing those lines at the end of the song that's not on the original
Hmm.
version. I love that. I think the vocal sounds great also. Paul,
I agree with
in
that.
my opinion, Paul 78 is a better vocalist than Paul 74. Not that he was bad in 74, but I just think he sounds even that much better in 78. The disco beat was not so in my face that it bothered me.
Hmm.
It almost kind of like fits the song to a degree, right? So really, I like the version. In fact, I'll say this. I can't imagine Double Platinum starting with the studio version from the first. Now that's maybe because I've just lived with this for 40 years, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, it's 35 years. But I can't imagine the original version of Strutter starting Double Platinum. Likewise, I can't imagine Strutter 78 being on the debut album either.
Right, right.
I
Yeah.
kind of feel like both of them
It's interesting.
fit the time. There's a couple of extra strutters, I think, in the chorus, like usually like on the debut album, it's just Strutter, and then the music,
Yeah.
but there's a few more Strutters in the
Hmm.
Double Platinum version. I certainly don't mind that they redid it. Like I hate when they redid some of these songs a few years ago, and they put out that whole album of all the different
Sonic Boom?
remakes. No, yeah, it was the bonus CD on Sonic Boom. Yes,
So I was correct.
yes, you were correct.
So don't say no then.
Well, originally it wasn't part of Sonic Boom; it was released elsewhere. But that's what I was thinking. But then I was like, well, yeah,
Right.
they did tack it on Sonic Boom as well. But
Yeah.
so you were partially right. How about that?
Okay.
No, you're right. It was
Yeah.
the bonus disc. And look,
Yeah.
those were done. I know that they were done because they wanted to have the rights to be able to sell them for commercials. I get why they did that. But
Mhm.
those versions I will never in a million years listen to because they
You and me
don't
both.
stand up. But Strutter 78, I will listen to in a heartbeat. Like to me, it's
Well,
well done.
I'll put it this way: if I'm listening to Double Platinum, I'm never going to skip it.
Right.
It's not something like I hear and I roll my eyes. It's just not. For me, it doesn't age as. I don't have as fond of memories. Yeah, it's kind of cool because I do remember the same thing. I didn't own the album, but my cousin had it, and my friend had it. You had it, and getting that feeling, and then opening up the cover and seeing the faces, and you could just
Yep.
feel. That was like that embossing or whatever they call that. I had never seen that before on a record before.
Right.
So
Yep.
it's
I
really
think the
cool.
part that always makes me wonder also with that version is it the full original lineup on that album? Right. Think about 78. So I've read there was a magazine in 79 that Stanley said they recorded that in February of 78. February of 78, they were starting to think about solo albums. They had the Phantom of the Park thing. They were very disjointed bands at that time. Clearly, it's Ace on the guitar. I mean, those are his
Mhm.
solos. It can't not be him. But I've always wondered, is that Gene on bass and is that Peter on drums? And I've never heard anybody say yay or nay one way or another. My gut tells me it's not the original lineup on that whole song.
Yeah, well, that's hard to say.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, if I make a parallel to the drum beat on something else. The song that I quickly think about is "You Matter to Me."
Hmm.
Drum feel wise, but
Which is not Peter Criss on drums,
I
right?
thought he played. No, I thought he played drums on that whole record.
No, no, no. He's definitely not playing drums on his whole record.
Is that like Schwartzberg, Alan
Yes,
Schwartzberg?
I think it's Alan Schwartzberg, if I remember right. Yeah. All right, go get the album
Mm,
behind you. Come on. Come
it's
on,
not
dig it
behind
out.
me. It's not. It's not. I gotta go over there and I gotta open up a crate. Hold
Oh,
on. I'm
man.
gonna bring it up right now. Give me one
Okay, bring
second.
it up. Because I could be wrong. Again, I don't have the brains on today, so I could be
I
wrong.
know. I see that, and I'm a little stunned right now.
People think they're headphones. It's
Um,
actually people talking in my ears, listening to the conversation as we normally do it. Yes, Peter Criss is
okay.
on.
I think you may be right and wrong.
Ooh,
Okay. Peter Criss, lead vocals, drums, all songs except tracks 6 and 7, which is "Easy Thing" and "Rock Me Baby." So he is on "You Matter to Me."
on drums. I still question you. What are you looking on? Cheapypedia?
Cheapypedia, yes, it's called Cheapypedia. Alan Schwartzberg was on tracks 6 and 7 and 10, which is again "Easy Thing," "Rock Me Baby," and "I Can't Stop the Rain."
Okay, then I stand corrected.
No. And I mean it's fair enough. Wikipedia is not always correct,
Right. No,
but
no, but
I always
they've got the credit sleeve in the album. I can't imagine that they've gotten that one wrong then on
yeah
Wikipedia. So
yeah
yeah. So look, maybe it is Peter. I've always wondered if it's Peter Criss or not on that '78 recording. There were rumors for a while that it was Sean Delaney. I don't know. I don't know. And, I don't know when Gene started recording his '78 solo album, but he was doing that, as well. I just have a feeling it's not all four guys on that song. I don't know.
mm, okay
But saying that, I still love it. Still
yeah
love it. Now, I also told you to sample the single version of Strutter '78, right?
yeah
There's a lot of talk. There's so many fans out there to say they love the single version, that the mix on that sounds so much better than the double platinum version. I'll be honest, I don't hear a tremendous difference. There's a few edits in it. I don't hear a tremendous difference between them, but I was curious, you with your musical ear, what you thought of that.
that's the one you sent me the link for,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
From the Japan. Yeah, you know what I noticed on that one is there's like an echo on Paul's voice that's not
Hmm.
really, which I didn't like.
Right.
And
And
that
the hi
that
hat's
kind of
more predominant, I think,
yeah,
also.
yeah. I just the echo alone. I was like, nah, no, 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 no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. I listened to the whole thing, but I was like, no, 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 no. So I disagree with that.
Okay.
I like the Strutter '78 version from Double Platinum better than the Japan, Japan 45, which
Yeah, Japan
that
40.
came with the box set that I have. Yeah,
Yeah,
I listened
exactly.
to that
Yep.
recently. Yeah.
Yep. And I
So
remember when that box set came out, there was a few people who were like, oh, I never realized there was another mix, and they heard it for the first time when that box set came out. To me, the differences are subtle that I don't see what a number of fans get all excited about. I don't love the edits in it. They
mm-hmm,
cut part of
mm-hmm,
Ace's solo. They cut half of that double drum intro. I like you. I don't love the echo as well.
mm-hmm.
The hi hat being louder.
Yeah,
Okay, whatever. Who cares?
yeah.
To me, in fact, I'll say this: if somebody didn't tell me it was a remix from Double Platinum, I might not even totally notice. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't even know if so much it's the hi hat or it's the shaker too. It might be a combination of both, but I did notice that was loud. You know,
Yeah, yeah. So
you
all
know
right,
the
yeah.
thing. The
Go
thing
ahead.
is like my thing is like when I hear Strutter, I don't feel like getting up and dancing to Strutter. I still look at it as a rock,
Agreed.
edgy rock. I'm not talking like edge like AC/DC, but you understand. It's a song I perform live. It's one of my favorite songs to play live. It's I think Gene Simmons, the bass line. It's like something I'll never get tired of playing. It's just
Yep.
such a great bass line, and it really helps move the song,
Agreed. Agreed.
rhythmically. So
Agreed. Yep. But so yeah, so to me that single remix
yeah,
doesn't matter to me one way or another.
doesn't matter to me, and that's why.
That's right. So, I'm sure people that are watching are going to say we're nuts because there are some fans that I think call that remix on the single the quintessential version. I don't get it, but hey, to each their own. That's what makes the world go round.
We could keep going with this. Well, that's the thing. You and I have said for the longest time there are certain songs like you hate Boomerang, and they'll be a Kiss fan. That'll be one of their favorites, and that's what's great because these are just opinions. We always say this is, we're not trying to be the authority on anything here. We're just voicing our opinions of what we think, and we welcome anybody's opinion and respect anybody's opinion, long as they do it with respect.
That's right. Now, saying that, we'll
Yes.
jump to another remix version.
Yeah.
Smashes, thrashes, and hits. Anybody says that that's their favorite version, just unsubscribe to my page right now, because I don't even.
Wow, I didn't know you had that strong. Oh, okay. You're not that
I'm only
strong.
joking. I'm only joking.
Okay.
But, to me, first off, I'll say this, and I remember us even thinking this in the 80s. The remixes on that album are not good. So Double Platinum, you said this before, Sean Delaney had a big hand in it. And I think those remixes, some of them, whether it's Dr. Love, Hard Luck Woman, I love the remixes on that album. On Smashes, oof, Jesus, I remember that remix of I Love It Loud. Talk about friggin' neutering a song. Who the hell decided to take all that heavy drum out of it?
Yeah.
Probably of all of the remix songs, Strutter is the least annoying of the remix. But there's a lot of echo on that snare drum or some kind of effect on it. I'm like,
yeah.
That.
Yeah. So again, let's remember, this is what, 1988 that came out?
Yep.
Okay, so production techniques in the 80s, big 80s, reverb, gated reverb, that's what they were going for. They were trying to modernize Strutter. The other thing that I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sounds like it's a redone vocal track.
I don't think so. I've never heard that before.
There's little subtleties in there that sound a little different. I never thought that until I listened to it yesterday. I'm like, wait a second. He sounds like he's singing that line a slightly different. I could be wrong, We do know that Gene replayed the bass line on Rock and Roll All Night.
Supposedly that bass is a different take from 75.
Okay, that's
so it makes me
interesting.
wonder if they took a slightly different take of Strutter. I don't think so. I've never heard that.
Listen to it closely. Again, people, if you have any opinion on this or any knowledge of this, I feel like it's a slightly different version. There are some parts where it sounds the same, but there's some things that when Paul articulates a line or a word, it sounds... I mean, I've heard the first version a zillion times. Unless my mind is doing tricks on me, or unless I don't have my brains on, it's... I feel like that's a different vocal take. However, again, that version, to your point, doesn't bother me as much. I think what they were doing at the time also, like if you listen to Deuce, or... It depends, because I read something where when Bob Ezrin did his recordings for, like, Destroyer... There was really no tinkering you could do. He created the, what they called, he burned the reverb into the track. You couldn't take it out. I heard that Eddie Kramer recorded all the drums in mono, and you could do certain things and maybe add reverb after the fact. One of the things that was starting to become popular in probably the late 80s is that they were able to take, if a snare drum track or bass drum track was isolated, they could trigger it with a sampler.
Right.
And so I think a lot of those snares or whatever are actually a sample of, and this was very early technology. I mean, now you could do that very easily with like Logic or, Pro Tools. But I think they were doing some like drum doubling or replacement, because some of the drums, not only do they have a different effect, but they sound a little different to my ear. Again, I know they did a lot of experimenting with that. And I thought at the time, hey, listen, if you're going to give me a greatest hits package, we already have Double Platinum, and I know there's some songs that were but let's do something a little different. Give me something, and I thought it was actually cool when I first heard I Love It Loud without the big drums. Like, oh, well, that's what the way the drums sound? Hold on, I said a little cool. A little cool, I said.
I got to take a sip of alcohol.
In the sense that I've never heard it that way. However, let me finish.
Okay.
If I never heard it like that again after the fact, I wouldn't be upset, But I always wondered at the time, like, how, I didn't really understand the technology as much as I do now. But I was like, oh, wow, that's how it really sounds or whatever, But
Right.
I had to, what they put on it to make it sound so monstrous, which I did ask Michael James Jackson at the time. If you remember, we went to the KISS convention.
That, yes.
It was awesome. Yeah. So.
I'll say, for me, if I never hear Strutter from Smashes again, that's quite all right with me. And I'm not anti the remixes.
Yeah.
Although I think they did a horrible job on the album. I know Love Gun, they added some keyboards to it. And as much as that might be like, people might cringe at the thought of them adding keyboards on it, I'm like, that's kind of interesting. It was an interesting twist. It modernized the song. I still love the original version better.
Hmm.
But I like what they did on Smashes. But with Strutter, I don't know if it's an echo, if it's some other effect on that snare drum, but it just annoyed when I listen to it. Every time he hits the snare, like I cringe.
Yeah, yeah, no, they added reverb,
Okay,
and some spatial sound to it,
right.
to the drums for sure, to everything really, So,
So
but
then,
I
in
don't
your
hate it.
opinion,
I don't hate it.
all right. So then, your opinion, Smashes or double platinum version? Which one do you like better?
If I had to pick one to listen to, it'd be Smashes.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. As much as that pains me, I like that you have a much different
You
opinion
know,
than me.
if I had my leisure suit ready and I wanted to dance, maybe I put on Strutter 78.
Okay.
But since I don't own a leisure suit and I don't really dance, I'm still gonna listen to Smashes Thrashes.
All right. Very good. If John Travolta came over, you'll put on Strutter 78.
Absolutely.
Okay. Very good. So, all right. This is
Yeah.
the version that I thought originally of not including, but I
Hmm.
thought it was interesting to include it, right? So in 95, January of 95, Kiss was playing in Japan, and there was a major earthquake at the time. And Kiss recorded in soundcheck two songs that you were able to call up on the phone, hear the song, and your phone call would make a donation. And the two songs they
Cool.
chose to re-record was Rock Bottom, if I remember right, and Strutter. So I've always found those two recordings to be
It's an odd
fascinating.
choice. I was just
Yeah,
thinking about that
exactly.
earthquake and rock bottom. I
Yeah,
don't know if that
well,
was.
I'm
I
almost
understand it's a different thing, but you know what I
right,
mean. You
right.
just
No,
see what
that's
I'm saying there.
that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought
Yeah.
about that. But Strutter was re-recorded in soundcheck for to raise some money for the earthquake, and it's obviously a recording with both Bruce and at that time Eric Singer was in the band. Eric Carr had passed away a few years prior. So I said let's include it because it's not Peter Criss on the drums,
You
right?
could
All
put. You
the other
should put a link in that because I don't know if people really know where that is.
I
You
will.
sent it to me. I had never heard it before,
Yeah,
so
I'll
you
put a
know.
link in there for people to listen to if they haven't heard it. But so that was interesting. So you never heard it before. So I've known this version for 20, 25 years. And that's
Hmm.
one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it because I think some people are going to say, "Ooh, I didn't know that existed." So it's a good idea. I'll put the
Super
link in.
Mario. Yeah. Huh.
But what did you think, having listened to it now for the first time? What did you think of that version?
All right. So I think overall, Paul's vocals are great on it. I don't like the stops with Eric with the drums and the chorus. Bam, 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 bam.
Hmm.
It's not just playing the beat. I just don't like that approach.
Okay.
That's one thing I took from it. And again, I think Bruce always did a very admirable job of kind of taking Kiss guitars or Ace Frehley guitar solos and kind of taking bits of it and then making it his own. But it just, again, Ace's solo from top to bottom has that signature theme and melody line that you could just sing, and it just. And when I just heard it, I was like, "Oh yeah, there's a bit." No, and then he goes to something. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of it. No, and I just feel like the way it even ends, it just, Ace's solo just you could hear from where it starts and how it climbs. It has this natural. That's what Ace was really great at.
Hmm.
And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, a guitar player, and they say, no matter what you say about Ace Frehley, and we've talked about this before, you could sing and you could hum his guitar solos. Maybe not be the most technically, he's never was going to be an Eddie Van Halen or, Vito Bratta, whoever, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? But his solos were just, to me, perfect for Kiss, those
Agreed.
early records. So I just didn't really like the solo so much too. So between the drum thing and then the solo thing, I didn't really see what kind of value add it really offered,
Mhm.
other than it was a different version.
Right. Right. It's funny because I actually don't mind Eric Singer's drumming on it. I love he did the double intro at the beginning. I
Yeah.
love that he also does that emphasis on she let you walk the street beside her. And he did that.
Uh-huh.
I like that he kept that in there as well. Um, I'm with you though. I didn't love Bruce's solo on this, and it's funny because when I went back and re-listened to it again before we did this, I thought about when I was at the Vinnie Vincent event back in May, right? And some people who are big Vinnie Vincent fans didn't like the comment I made that said that I thought Vinny did a good solo on I Just Wanna when he performed it, but I liked Bruce's
Remember that?
version better. And I said, well,
Right.
part of that could be that I lived with Bruce's version for 30 years, that I think Bruce really nailed it. And Vinny's, I'd have to let it marinate, as we like to say, a little bit more. But
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if that's also with this. I love Ace's solo, and when I re-listen to Bruce's, I'm like, that's not right. That's not the right feel for this song. And is it because I've just lived with Ace's solo for 40 plus years, or is it really better? I'm not sure. but I'd rather hear Ace's solo. And it made me actually appreciate Tommy in the band right now and kind of keeping that tradition of those Ace solos. As much as I liked in the 80s when Bruce did his own thing, when I went back and listened to it today, it sounds off to me. And it's nothing against Bruce. He was a great guitarist. I loved his stuff in the 80s. I just said I liked his stuff on I Just Wanna. But it lacked something that Ace brought to the song, in my opinion.
Listen, when you kind of perfect something for a song, whether because you heard it a zillion times, it's really hard to top that.
Agreed.
You know, what was Bruce really going to do? You know, it's kind of puts him at a disadvantage. You know, I think Kiss encouraged him to kind of put his signature on it, which is great. That they didn't hold him to the fire and say, no, you got to play this exactly like Ace. I give the guys credit for that. That being said, my opinion of the tune is based on what I heard, and that's just my feeling. And again, you should probably did I say this already? Put that link in the
Yes, you did, and I will.
Yeah. Yes. So other people could weigh in on it also. But again, it's also very cool to hear something that you haven't heard before, especially since it wasn't an official release.
Right.
However, they did do it for an event, you know, that was
they officially released it, but not on an album or a CD.
And it's also kind of cool because I was thinking about this, is like Kiss was still figuring out like where are we going with our careers at this point.
Agreed.
You know, that whole '95, they were doing those worldwide, what would they call them? Those tours, yeah. And this was right before the reunion, so you know, it's also cool to listen from that kind of perspective. You know.
Agreed. And if anybody, I'll diverse for a moment. If anybody's into collecting the bootlegs and whatever, like I am, some of those, that '95 show in Japan is incredible. I love the set list. It's a great mix of old. It's got some new songs in it. And by new, I mean '80s. You know, it's really, to me, the band was really fully embracing at that point, as they had started in '92 and '90, really on the Hot in the Shade tour. They were fully embracing some of that old material. And to me, the band kicks ass at that time. They sound phenomenal. Those '94 shows they did in Argentina are incredible. The '95 shows in Japan are incredible. It's just something about the version of Strutter. I'm just going to go back to the original before I listen to that '95 version, as cool as it is.
Yeah, again, and then the other thing that's interesting about that version is that as Paul would do his vocal, you know, acrobatics, you know, so when She'll Only Make You Cry, he changes the melody line. Yeah, and I listened to it saying, do I like this or do I not want this? And I wasn't even sure at that point. But every time, I hate to say it, every time I hear that, it always makes me think that, man, Paul always pushed it to the limits, and he always gave 1,000%. And for those who criticize him now for his vocal whatever issues, you know, understand that when you want to remain on top, you're going to give everything you have, everything you've got, and that's what he always tried to do. You can't fault the man for that. You know what I mean? When you're competing in a landscape of, well, at that time it was very different because you got the Eddie Vedders and, you know, I can't think of all their names right now, of the grunge era.
And those guys.
Yeah. So Scott Weiland, you know, those kind of vocalists. You know, it was very, very different, you know, from that metal 80s, you know, kind of sound.
No, I'm glad you brought up the singing on it, because to me, over-sings it slightly, but it's not. Stanley sometimes could over-sing things and it becomes a little too much to me.
I still love you.
We'll talk about that.
I still love you. I still love you.
Yeah, I still love you on MTV Unplugged. It's like, all right, we know you hit all those crazy notes. That's great. I don't need to hear it. But I don't feel like he totally oversang this on the 90s.
No, I don't. Not at all.
As opposed to, let's get to the last version, Kiss Alive 4, the symphony release. Now, I happen to like the Act 1, as they call it, the recordings that they have on that. Yeah. I think, you know, for all the flack that Peter gets for not sounding great during that time, I think those recordings are solid. Not great. His drumming lacks the feel that it had in the 70s.
A little flat.
A little flat, yes, a little
flat.
But they're still solid. But like, I think if I remember the version of Let Me Go Rock and Roll, I happen to think is really good on Act 1 over there. Deuce is not bad. Strutter, it just, you know, it falls a little flat to me, some of the drumming. And it's because I think some of that feel, as you were talking about before on the Alive version, it's lacking. It's flat. It's a perfect word. It's flat.
Well, you know, the thing is, technically, I think he simplified some of the fills. And also, I believe at that time they were using triggers on his drums because he was having all kinds of back issues. So he wasn't able to dig in. I mean, you watch that early footage of him playing at Winterland. The guy was a freaking beast on the drums. You
Agreed.
know,
Agreed.
what's the '76 that's readily available? Where's
There's
that?
one from Detroit,
Yeah,
Detroit 76. Yep.
I mean, it's
There's an
just
Anaheim 76.
all you have to just look at his body playing,
Yeah,
and then when he's playing, I mean, obviously older, you can't really
of
compare,
course.
but
Yep.
that gets translated into sound and performance and feel and energy.
Yep.
And the other thing that's probably, if I had to guess, that when they recorded Strutter, whether it was for the first album, whether it was for Alive, they probably didn't play to a click track.
Right.
When they were doing that stuff for the symphony, I think that's when basically you could hear when it's on the grid, when it's
Mm.
very, and that stiffens the song too. So some
Yeah.
of it's not even Peter's fault, because if he's got
Right. Right.
in his ears, and I know because I played to a click and I played without a click.
Right. Right.
You're gonna be kind of stuck to that, especially if they're trying to sequence other instruments or keyboard player or whatever else they got. And for that performance, not that particular song, because that was the
Right.
act one.
Right.
When they have all the string instruments and the horns and all that other stuff, it had to be very kind of meticulous and on time. So
That's interesting. I've never thought of, and I've never read or that I recall hearing that he was playing to a click at that time, but what you're saying makes sense. I can't rule it out. I honestly don't know.
yeah, and I don't know either,
Hmm.
but it has the sound to it.
It has
To
that feel
me,
to you.
feel
As a
wise,
drummer, it has that feel.
Yeah,
To it. Right.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
But I still think it's a good version. To your point, I think I don't know if you said I know you said "Let Me Go Rock and Roll" you like a lot. I think it's okay.
It feels sterile to me.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
I think I'd listen to the Smashers version over this.
No, not me. Not
Okay.
me.
So, that's
It's
interesting.
funny because the other complaint, if you will, that I have about the Live 4 version is you were talking before about Stanley singing. And this one, it's a little too over the top for me. The endings, the way he sings the ending of some of the lines.
Yeah.
Like I said, the 95 version was a little bit, but not bad. This one, it's just a little too much. I want to be like, bring it back a notch, Paul. So, between Paul singing and Peter's drumming, God, I hate to say this, I'm going to get crucified. Is Tommy Thayer the star of the song on this one? He might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because I have no problem with the way he played Ace's parts on this. I think it sounds
Mhm.
great, and Gene sounds fine also. But Paul's singing was so for me on this.
And still, you don't like the Smashers version better just because of the drum sound?
Yeah, the Smashers version is hard on my ears. I know I just said that this one's a little flat. The Smashers version, just everything about it sounds wrong to me. I don't know why. It just and like I said, it's one of the least. It's one of the most tolerant remixes of the '70s songs on Smashes for me.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of Love Gun, but I just don't. That snare drum sound just irritates me. And as you know, it's just. Dun, 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 dun. It's like it's constantly hitting it. I'm like, oh, every time I hear it, I just jump and cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Fair enough.
So yeah, for me, in fact, I would say of all the versions, Smashes is probably my least favorite.
Okay.
In case that wasn't obvious by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I think I got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Which one would you say was your least favorite then?
I'm looking at the list. That's why I'm looking this way.
Yeah, I figured that.
I think maybe the Japan 45 version was my least.
The Japan, yeah, okay, yep.
78, the single
Oh,
version.
the single. Oh, interesting. Okay, I thought you meant the 95 version.
No. Oh. That's interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll take a drink while you think.
It may be. I don't know. I wasn't that thrilled with the 95 version either. Maybe the 95 now that I think. Yeah, the 95 version now. Because the solo kind of loses it for me. The stops in the chorus, even though it's okay, it's not like, oh my God, what did Eric do?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. I'd go back and forth with that.
So it's interesting. No, go ahead, finish.
I said all I know is I think Alive is the best one.
Right. So, but it's interesting because you're saying the 95 version, because of Eric Singer's drumming, might be your least favorite, right? And you're going back and forth on it, right? But think about where we started this conversation when we were on the cruise, whatever it was, 2017 or 18, and they did Strutter. And like I said, that was maybe your favorite song they did that night. Obviously, Eric Singer's in the band now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you absolutely loved the way he played drums on the song. You had no problem with it. And people say they've kind of tamed Eric in the last, since he's back in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So my question is then to you as a drummer, do you think it's better that he was tamed?
I think for the most part, yeah. I think that Eric certainly watered down his parts.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like you remember when Eric Carr was playing the band. You know, he was kind of doing his whole thing on a lot of songs.
Yep.
Cold Gin. He was, you know, that he was doing this whole floor tom, you know, rack tom. He'd ride it, which always was a cool Eric Carr thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's better for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So you said your definitive version then would be Alive.
Yeah.
Boy, my definitive version. It's almost a toss-up between Alive, the debut, and the demo. I think I'm going to go with the studio version today. And if we record this in 2 hours, I might go with the live version. And last year, I might have gone with the demo version. So that's how close those three are to me.
That being said, Desert Island, you know, and I had to pick one, it'd probably be the first album just because it's the original.
Right.
If that even makes any sense.
No.
You know, it's just...
Desert Islands, I think I picked Kiss Alive over the first album.
It's interesting how we think, you know, differently on that. You know, it's just something thinking the first Kiss song you heard on the first record is that exact version. That's why I say that's the Desert Island version.
Right. I can understand that.
But from a sonic energy, performance, you know, I think they refined it on Alive.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I could get that. And you know what? I'll kind of say this as we get close to wrapping up here. So many Kiss fans say of the Kiss drummers, they rank Peter Criss third. And think about what we just said with those versions and which ones are our favorites, right? And at least for me, part of the reason those are my favorites is Peter's drumming. His drumming, the feel he has on those songs, that swing we were talking about before, that swagger that Gene mentions. It's hard to duplicate that, and it gives such a great feel to those songs.
Well, I was just going to say, and I'm not going to make a comment, but I really suggest whoever owns the rights to this show, whoever's in control of the show, that we do a show totally on Kiss drummers and talk about the three drummers, the recordings they were on. And
yes, hi. I'd like to see if we could book a show.
Because I think, to your point, people think that he's third ranked, but I have some heavy opinion on a lot of the stuff that I think it would be an interesting debate.
Yeah, no,
so I'm not going to give my opinion on that one now because I don't want to.
Well, I just made the call, so maybe we'll do a future episode on Kiss's drumming, and you know, maybe even on Kiss's guitarist, because we spoke a little bit about Bruce's playing on Strutter, and you know, I brought up some of his playing on some other songs. I think those are some good topics, maybe for another day.
And you know, we could say at least Tommy played on original material on 2 records.
Yep.
Eric Singer would be on 3, right? Because Revenge, right? Revenge
and
Sonic
Carnival of
Boom.
Souls.
And I thought only a couple of tunes. I thought they had another drummer play on that.
Wrong again.
Let me go to the Wikipedia.
Souls?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carnival Souls. I was thinking of Psycho Circus.
Oh, okay. No. Psycho Circus. Yeah, that's not Eric.
Yeah. But you get my point. We got a nice, you know, chunk of Eric Carr in the '80s. We certainly have Eric, but I like this theme. I think we should do them as separate shows. But
I like the theme as well. Well, I'll be curious, people who watch this, what's your favorite version of Strutter?
Yeah.
Which versions, if any, did make you cringe? Like the way I said, the Smash's version kind of just doesn't sit well with me. Are there any versions released that don't sit well with you guys? And then if we do this again, where we debate versions of another song, toss out some ideas for us. What are you thinking? What song should we discuss? Did you like this idea? Like I said, it's something I've been talking about with you, Vin, for I think over a year. So I'm kind of curious to see how people react to talking, 45 minutes to an hour about one song, right? But that's what's so great about talking Kiss is like all of this little detail, minutia, like this, 7 different versions, and each one of them have these little things about it. So I love it, but I'm kind of curious to hear what the fans think about it. What other songs would you like to see us discuss like this? What versions do you like the best? And am I crazy for thinking that the single edit of Strutter 78 is pretty much almost identical to the double platinum version? Certainly not enough to get all excited about it being different. So I'm curious to see what people think.
Yeah.
So, all right, bud. On that note, I think this is a wrap.
Sounds good. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Always enjoy it, my friends. It's always good chatting. And I'll leave with the double Ringo.
Double Ringo.
All righty. Later, everybody. Have a good one.
Later.
All righty. Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time listening and watching this episode, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments on what are your favorite versions as well as your least favorite version of the song Strutter. Also, feel free to give us some recommendations of other songs you'd like to hear us discuss and dissect in the future episodes. We'd love to hear your comments and your feedback. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.